Thank you for watching. Recently you have seen me unbox this HPI Venture, long anticipated release, or they at least kept us waiting for about 2 years. I can't say it has been really worth the wait. This is quickly turning into one of my favorite trail trucks. It's a really cool alternative to have a truck like this out as well. Buy again a different brand. I know that we're all used to our Axial kits, the Viteras, the Traxxas TRX4, more recently also the Red Cat has come out, Red Cat Gen 7 or whatever it's called. And well, of course also this HPI Venture. Now there's a ton of potential right out of the box and there's no real need to modify it, but when you can, like me, you will. And I'm going to show you in this video what I did so far to modify mine, make it a tiny bit more personalized. Right out of the box it comes with these non-descriptive tires, so there's a thread going on, but it's not licensed in any way. All of the other brands, or most of the other brands, because Traxxas doesn't, they all sort of license tires, so there's some BF Goodrich going on, stuff like that. I would have sort of expected, I think, with the HPI that they would have gone with a Maxxis tire, because I know that in the past they've done a lot of Maxxis licensing, for example, in the time of the HPI Blitz. So it kind of surprised me that it didn't happen with this HPI Venture and with this release, seeing that it's so, well, highly anticipated and I had basically all the time in the world to license something. Not a big deal though. It's most of my trail trucks I actually change out wheels and tires and some other bits and bobs that I will take you over as well. But this was first on the agenda. Now last week I was at Amain Hobbies in Chico. And a tour of the office, but also of the store. I'll post a video of the store later on the channel, so you can have a look at that. They got a great store going on, really helpful employees. And they carry a ton of upgrades over at Amain. Now amongst them are these Vanquish Roost rims. So these are actually CNC machined aluminum rims that have afterwards been anodized in a gunmetal color. And I think they fit the truck really well. If you wonder what's going on with the paint scheme, because last time it really had just that hearing aid or a band-aid color, yes, I did alter that a tiny bit. So what I did is I removed all of the stickers from the windows. The only stickers that I left on for now are the door handles and the tail lights. I actually punched a few holes, that's what I started with. Put some Proline light buckets behind it. I'll make sure that there's a link to those light buckets in the video description. If you're on the Proline website, you want to have a discount, HemiStorm 10 gets you 10% off. I actually put an Axial Light Kit in here, so I got head and tail lights just to give it a tiny bit more realism. Still waiting for an interior panel to really finish off the look. The window stickers, I took those off because they had plenty of air bubbles going on and I was not a big fan of the look of those. This is a really easy fix. You mask the body off on the inside and mask it off on the outside. Just paint on all of your window lines, and afterwards I also added this HPI logo on the top, a Venture logo on the front, some HemiStorm writing on the sides, and this gunmetal line just to tie everything in a tiny bit. That's also where the idea for using these Vanquish Roost rims actually came from. These are a 1.9 rim, and I wanted a tire that looked a tiny bit more scale because these are pretty cool in how beefy they are. But in terms of scale, they don't really do the trick, I feel. So we went for some Pitbull tires. These are the Pitbull ATs. Amain carries, I think, all of the Pitbull tires. So they had these also in stock. If you look at the thread pattern on them, they are extremely scale. And I know Desmond, everybody who knows Pitbull tires also knows Desmond, the king of traction. And he's been showing me these tires and how they actually grip. This is that known alien compound, if you are familiar with Pitbull tires. And I have to say that the grip on them is phenomenal, especially for such a narrow tire. I think they'll look great under the FJ Cruiser. Gives it a nice scale look, and combined with those Vanquish rims, I think they'll look really good. Now another item that I picked up at Amain is this Warn winch. This is a Warn Xeon winch made by RC 4-wheel drive. Features a dual motor. This is, I think, originally like an 8-scale type of winch. I do think that it works well on that FJ Cruiser body. just to hide the grill a tiny bit. I'm pretty sure that in the future we will see some items coming out to give the whole car a bit more of a scale look, like for example wipers and that grill section, head and tail light cluster, stuff like that. But for now, since it's such a new truck, I just needed to sort of make do. This Xeon winch, it even fits behind the brush guard. You do need to take it off while you mount it, but that's basically the only thing. Now, I think exterior wise that sort of finishes it off for now. I didn't want to add too much bits and bobs. I think HPI did a great job right out of the box with that roof rack, the mirrors, and of course in the back that spare wheel carrier. If you're not familiar with how this works, I'll show that once again. There's a body clip in here. You just lift this out, up and over, and then you can remove the entire body and have access to the chassis. Another thing that I changed, I put a Mamba X speed control in here, so you can see it over here. Waterproof. I run this in most of my crawlers, except for in my Vetera I run a Mamba Micro X. I like all the extra features that it has. It's waterproof, has an 8 amp built-in BEC. You can change all of your settings using a Castle link. So I usually really ramp it down, set like an extreme exponential, just to have some really extreme bottom end control, to put it like that. I combined that with a 2850 1406 Slate motor. I run this in my SCX-10-2s as well. It's proven to be a very good combo. Shock wise, I had no complaints whatsoever. These big bore shocks really perform well, extremely well, I have to say. Even the tuning right out of the box is on point. Now when I fly, I always check my car. So I got like carry-on luggage and I got check luggage, and nothing is a better sort of like workout or shock test than checking your luggage. With the pressure changing when you fly at I think a height of 40,000 foot, you'll be really able to see if a shock actually starts to leak or not. These are so far the only shocks that I've ever had on any of my trucks that did not leak. So there's still oil in them. I mean, they didn't even leak a drop. And that in itself, I think, is pretty impressive. Yeah, so let's see. Mamba X, put that Slate motor in there. I love these combos. I use them in everything that I own. And then one of the biggest weak points, and especially once you start weighing down this truck a tiny bit, is the servo. As I've said in my unboxing, there's a lot of cast aluminum parts in here. So you have the link mounts, also the panhard mount. All of that stuff, it's all cast aluminum. The diff covers are cast aluminum, so there's a lot of weight going on down low. Then with the behind the axle steering setup that they have, there's a lot of hardware going on as well on the steering hubs, and all of that really weighs it down. Now once you also start to add some really grippy tires, some heavier rims, that's where that steering servo really starts to struggle in an extreme way. So Amain carry these Protec Rc Servos. I wasn't familiar with them at all. I also didn't know that these are Amain's own brand. This servo, I believe, packs over 600 ounces of torque. I believe it's even 600 and over 650 ounces of torque. At some good speed. This is the 370 TBL. It's a brushless servo, steel gears. It's waterproof, has a really nice look to it with some nice finishing. So there's some nice machining going on the actual servo casing. I had no problems fitting the stock Servo Saver to it. This is actually an item that I overlooked when I unboxed the truck, but the steering servo has a Servo Saver mounted directly to it, which is actually a really nifty unit. So there's like, the internals of it is like a cast-in aluminum spline, to put it like that, so you don't have to worry about it stripping out. And well, just in like extreme hang-up situations, you can tune it to your liking. But when you really get extremely hung up, you can potentially blow a servo, and this will prevent you from doing that. Now, one other complaint that I had was the battery tray sits pretty high up. So what I actually did, let me get that real quick so you'll see me disappear and reappear. I picked up for now one of these Protec Rc silicon graphene LIHV batteries. So this is not a LiPo, this is actually LIHV. which is good because I got a new charger that can actually deal with these. This is 3600 milliamps, so that's really impressive. If you compare it to, hold on, for example, this Dynegy pack, this is a 5500. You can tell that it's almost half the size while still being a 3-cell. It's not any thicker either, and this battery, this will give me a lot more options to actually distribute this weight a tiny bit different. I haven't hacked the battery tray up yet. I know that that's the easiest way to do it and to distribute that weight somewhere else, but I'm waiting for somebody to actually make an insert. This is part of the structural integrity between those two frame rails. And I don't want to mess around with it too much for the moment. So I'm waiting for somebody to make sort of like a cross brace that sits between those rear shock hoops, so I can get rid of the entire battery tray and drop it down lower, preferably I think over here. So right behind the transfer case on top of the frame rails. Hook it up and run it. Again, this is Protec RC, this is made by Amain themselves. Really impressed with it. What it does is it holds a charge to like a higher peak, so you can charge it up to, for example, 4.4 volts per cell instead of 4.1, 4.2, which you would get out of a LiPo. And especially when you're, for example, racing, you will be able to notice that difference. So when you're starting to get below average on drawing amps out of that battery, this one, just because you can charge it a bit higher, it will keep that charge a lot longer, and the drop down in the voltage peak will occur at some point, but a lot later than you're perhaps used to with your LiPo batteries. That's at least what's been told to me, and well, I've been running this thing all day long, no complaints whatsoever. Yeah, so that's also a good thing. I think it's a huge improvement over using these super big packs. This is again, this is a 5500, but compare the two together, this should have been a 7200 if it was made from the same stuff. So yeah, I guess that about covers it for this video. If you want information about any of the items that I put on there, so whether that be these Vanquish Roost rims, the Pitbull AT tires, the RC 4-wheel drive Xeon double motor winch, the Castle system that I'm running in here, so the 2850 Slate motor, and the Mamba X, or that ProTek waterproof steel gear high torque extreme crawler servo. Go check out all of the links in the description box, of course, also for this Protec RC silicon graphene pack. Yeah, that was a whole mouthful. So so far I'm really impressed with the truck. Run it a couple of days. I did treat it very carefully, I must say, just because I know that I'm one of the first guys to actually have one, and it was really fun to see people respond to it. So it was, amongst other things, I've also been to the RPP Jamboree, where people had a chance to look at the truck. And I must say, everybody's really surprised and positively surprised with what HPI has done over here, and I think rightfully so. They have done their homework. They are a bit late to the party, but they are dressed to impress, so all of that's cool. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. I always appreciate that. If you have any questions about any of the stuff that I've showed you over here, leave them in the comments box. I can imagine that I skipped something. And if you want to have a look at Amain's YouTube channel, because we shot a video over there as well, having a look at the HPI Venture, go check out their YouTube channel. I will leave a link in the video description. Thanks so much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.
Back on.